A friend of mine has a great quote that I love, and she says, CIA officers are the world's best salesmen. The only difference is you sell vacuums, we sell treason. So you've got to be able to sell ice to an Eskimo. You've got to be able to talk to anybody. If you get stranded, you got to be able to convince somebody, hey, can I get a ride for a few miles? Of course, you're lying out of your teeth. You're not saying, yes, what is your job? I work for the Central Intelligence Agency. This isn't the military where you're going to have a bunch of guys surrounding you. You're going to be out on the streets, alone, by yourself. How resourceful are you? It's going to be tough. We want to be able to drop you in the middle of nowhere. It's just a mental game, and they just try to break you mentally. A lot of times, it's your own imagination, meaning you're like, oh crap, I'm being followed. Here in the States, I can run around and drive in circles and I don't care. But there, you can't do it because then surveillance will be like, okay, that guy's probably agency because he's trying to evade surveillance. Of course, I'm lying out of my teeth, and inside, your heart's pumping, and your brain starts to play tricks like, okay, she knows I'm agency. They're gonna come out with their Uzis and just fill me full of lead.
Welcome to Mic Drop, the podcast where relevancy is irrelevant and we don't give a shit about your feelings. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's both an honor and a pleasure to welcome my next guest to the podcast. He spent time as a police officer right out of college. He spent 7 years in the CIA. He's the CEO of his company called Spy Briefing. He's a New York Times bestselling author of Spy Secrets That Can Save Your Life. He's also a winner on ABC's hit show Shark Tank. Coincidentally, he's the white spy in Spy vs. Spy. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Jason Hanson.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for coming. What's the last full book that you've read?
The last full book. So right now, interestingly enough, I am buying businesses in the niche that I'm in, which is the security, the survival, the gun, the knife niche. And so I believe it was called Buy Then Build, or it was some business buying book. Yeah. So help me learn more about acquisitions. So usually the books I'm reading are either gun and self-defense books or business related books.
Yeah, I gotcha. Do you have a favorite author in the business space?
Masa Youb, I love reading his stuff, mostly articles in the gun magazines. Great guy, met him years ago, and I just left the agency, didn't know anything about starting a business, was trying to learn the firearms business civilian side, and he gave me some good advice. So I enjoy his reading. And then Clayton Christensen for business books, the Harvard professor. I don't know if he still is, but great wisdom. A little sometimes too in-depth in the weeds, but obviously a brilliant guy.
I guess better to be too in the weeds than too out of them.
Exactly.
What's your worst vacation experience?
Oh, geez. Well, when I married my wife, I've got
I'm sure she'll love to hear that.
I was going to say, I've got 6 kids, but when I married my wife, I said there are 2 things I will never do in my life. She's from California. I said, 1, I will never live in the state of California, and 2, I will never go to Disney World. So before I married her, I was dating a girl, and she had 2 kids from a previous marriage, and I went to Disney World with them, and it was the worst. I hate that place. So that is the worst vacation I've ever had, is going to Disney World.
What did you hate about it?
I like natural fun. I mean, I want to go to the lake. I want to go to the mountains. I want to go hiking. I hate standing in line for 10 hours for a 5-minute ride.
So no manufactured experiences?
No, not for me.
All right. Do you have a best childhood memory?
Well, I was an Eagle Scout, and so I grew up in Boy Scouts and going to summer camp where we were shooting guns and camping and doing all that kind of stuff. I remember this place called Camp Rodney, which is somewhere in Virginia or West Virginia, because Virginia, where I'm born and raised. Mosquitoes were the worst mosquitoes you ever had in your life. And they sent us with mosquito netting, but of course, as 9-year-old boys or whatever we were, like, we're not gonna put this mosquito netting on. Yeah. Miserable night, covered in mosquitoes, didn't get a wink of sleep. And then we put our mosquito netting on. Yeah. But despite that, just a great time playing in the water and doing all kinds of boy stuff.
Yeah. Do you have a chapped asshole with how it's Scouts now and what they've turned into?
Absolutely. So I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We sent more Boy Scouts through that organization than any other organization in the world. But when they started doing all that idiot stuff, my church said, well, we're not going to participate in the Boy Scouts. It doesn't have our traditional values. It's not doing what we want. I'm just like, how dumb can you be? You cut off your biggest customer. Yeah. And even the Girl Scouts were mad because the Girl Scouts are, wait a minute, why are you letting girls in? We're the Girl Scouts. Now you're taking away our girls. Yeah. So,
do you have any idea if the, I guess, percentage rate, has there been a big drop in popularity or membership with it? Do you know?
With Boy Scouts? Yeah, it's been a huge drop. I mean, I know because all the sexual stuff they had, they're filing bankruptcy, and I mean, it's a train wreck. So I don't know what the exact number is, but they self-imploded a great organization.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't do a whole lot of it. I had a couple friends that did it, and I went on some trips with them. It was cool. I liked doing it. My parents were like, "Fuck that, you're not doing it." But
Yeah, we don't want to take it.
They didn't want to mess with it. So I did all sports. But what's the first 3 hours of your day look like on a normal day that you're in town?
I get up at, if I'm not training, if I'm not teaching a class or course, I get up at 5 a.m. I go right to the gym. I work out for about an hour. And then I come back from the gym, I shower, I take my kids to school, and then I write and do a lot of writing because I'm always writing a book or writing an article or something like that. So that's the first 3 hours.
Specific type of workout?
So kind of HIIT stuff, meaning a lot of body weight. So I'm doing push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, squats. I got a bad hip where I need a hip replacement. So I'm not squatting with a huge rack these days, mostly air squats.
Yeah. I squatted with a huge rack once. That's what she said. You got to throw some office references in. All right. So childhood growing up, you said you're from West Virginia.
No, so West Virginia was where the camp was. I'm born and raised just outside of Washington, D.C. in Northern Virginia.
Oh, okay. If you could kind of synopsize what growing up in that area was like, siblings, any significant events that happened, what was your childhood like, generally speaking?
I was blessed. I had a great childhood. I had what I'd call a normal childhood. So dad ran his own business. Mom was a school teacher. Have one brother, and grew up in a suburb just outside of Washington, D.C. And back in the day, it was a conservative, good place. It's not like it is now where it's very, the liberals took over and it's, I don't even recognize it and all the gun laws and stuff. So yeah, I had played with friends hung out. Where I was, it backed up to woods. And so I had a four-wheeler that I'd go ride in the woods in. I had a creek where I'd go fishing every day, that kind of stuff. So it was a perfect childhood for me.
Yeah. Did you do a lot of, outside of the Boy Scouts, a lot of that type of stuff, hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, that kind of stuff? So area? Hunting,
no. And the only reason is because in the area we grew up in, there was really no hunting going on, just in a suburb of Washington, D.C. And my father wasn't a hunter. But fishing, yes. And, in high school, I was kind of a late bloomer, so while everybody else was chasing girls, me and my buddies were shooting each other with BB guns in the woods, running around having BB wars.
Which is actually probably safer than chasing chicks.
Except we didn't wear glasses until one time it went, shot my buddy and it went in his skin and he had to go to the hospital and get it removed, and we all got him confiscated by mom.
Yeah. Nice. Do you mind if I ask what your dad's business was?
Yeah, it was computer training.
Oh, okay.
So this was, way back in the day where computers
Commodore
were just coming
64.
online. And it was like, okay, here's how you use a computer. So that's what he was doing.
Oh, no shit. Huh. That's a good business to be in. Did you play any sports growing up?
I did. I played soccer, basketball, and baseball. Couldn't hit a baseball to save my life. So that sport didn't last very long. So it was mostly soccer and basketball were the sports I enjoyed.
Yeah. Did they go anywhere, like when you graduated high school and ultimately went to college?
No, I did not have that much skill, not that much athleticism. So I wrestled in high school. It was the only high school sport I did, just to do something. Yeah. But yeah, neither of them went anywhere.
Yeah. What was your thought process in graduating high school, going to college, ultimately becoming a police officer for a brief period? Did you know at that time that you wanted to join the CIA, or what was kind of your mental path at that point in your life?
So my mental path, I wish I could say it was super clear and well thought out, but no, it wasn't. It was, hey, I'm getting ready to graduate college. I need to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. I don't want to spend 40 years at a desk job pushing papers. I live in the Washington, D.C. area, so every government agency is in my backyard. So I went hard putting out applications. I put it to police departments, the CIA, the Secret Service, a bunch of other organizations I can't even remember right now.
Where did you go to college and what for?
So I went to college in Radford University, which is in Southern Virginia. It's right near Virginia Tech, and it's the redheaded stepchild of Virginia Tech, basically.
All right.
And I went to school for business management. Again, I hated school. I am not a formal education guy. I mean, like the thought of going back to school, I'd rather jump off a bridge kind of thing. So I went to, I'm graduating high school. I'm not sure if I'm going to go to college. My dad says, okay, I don't care what you do, but you have 2 weeks to be out of my house if you're not going to go to college.
Yeah. I
was like, college sounds kind of good. Maybe I'll go to college. So I went there for the hanging out, for the socializing. I mean, I hardly ever went to class. I didn't, I scheming, okay, you're going to go on Tuesdays, I'm going to go on Thursdays. That way we get the notes. But I graduated college fine, good enough to get me to the agency. And I ended up getting a job offer. Well, so I ended up getting my first job out of college was as a police officer. But I'd already put in all these applications to federal agencies. And so very shortly thereafter, the CIA and the Secret Service offered me a job the same week, and figured the agency would be more exciting and have more fun. I knew people who had been Secret Service agents, and one of the guys was like, listen, I'm on the presidential detail, and everybody thinks it's the most glamorous, exciting thing in the world. I'm like, you know what I did yesterday? I stood 8 hours at a door at a hotel. That's all I did.
Yeah.
And my company now does executive protection work. We do a lot of celebrities, musicians, and I oversee it, but I do not find the work enjoyable enough for me.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. So with the CIA then, so if we could, just police officer wise, did you have any experiences as a cop that I guess kind of influenced any of your career in the CIA or your life? Like, were there any big ticket items that took place that you recall?
There weren't. One of the things that jumps out at me is I just remember we're in the academy and one of the instructors saying, we're going through deadly force law and all that type of stuff, and saying, like, if you are not prepared to kill somebody, get out of here now.
Yeah.
If you never draw the gun, if you think you're going to threaten somebody or wait, like when you draw that gun, you got to be prepared to pull the trigger. That's the only reason it's coming out, is you think you may have to use it. And so that was what stuck out on me. And I remember, maybe it was one person didn't show up the next day, but for me, right and wrong is very black and white for me.
Yeah.
If someone's breaking in my home to home invasion, I have zero problem pulling the trigger. I've had to draw my gun two times with the agency, and never had to use it, never had to shoot anybody in my life, and I hope I never have to, but there was no moral qualms or hesitation because, hey, this guy's gonna kill me and I wanna go home tonight.
Yeah. As a cop, did you do any beat work out?
Yeah, but again, really nothing special, nothing, patrol type of stuff. DUIs and nothing remarkable or to write home about.
You didn't bust any senators with a sack of blow-offs and hooker titties or anything?
No, not that I remember. Though I was in Arlington County, so just over the bridge from Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
But yeah, none of that.
Yeah, well, that's too bad. That'd make for a good story. What are the two key components for canine success? That's effective training and proper nutrition. Fueled by Team Dog brings those two components to your family and best friend. The perfect nutritional balance that results in a higher mental acuity, energy, overall vitality, and even an improved appearance. Every product you will find in my company's store was born from the battlefield and not from the boardroom. Let my life's work help you become your dog's hero. All right, so the CIA calls, you blow off the Secret Service. Walk us through the path of, once they say, hey, we're interested to bring you on. How does that go?
Very long, very intense. Took me 12 months from the day they basically call me and send you the letter in the mail that says, hey, we might be interested in you. Then and I'm trying to think of the exact process, how it went, is you go and meet somebody in person, you do a psychological where you fill out the 600 questionnaire thing to make sure you're not crazy, you're not a nutso, that kind of thing. Then if you pass that, they bring you on back for another interview. And then if you pass that, you take the polygraph. Then if you pass the polygraph, they do a medical. And then I think if you pass the medical, there was one more thing with a psychiatrist or psychologist again to make sure you're not some wacko. Though I can tell you, I work with some people at the agency who clearly skated by that lady they met with. So overall, and then of course you got to fill out the paperwork, a mountain of paperwork, so they can do all the background checks and interview friends and family and all that. So again, it took me about 12 months from start to finish.
Do you recall the polygraph very well?
I do. So here's an interesting thing. I was polygraphed by multiple places that I applied for, including the Secret Service and the CIA. And the Secret Service was much more good cop, bad cop intense. There were two polygraphers, and they're sitting in there really trying to make you sweat. Like, for instance, I've never done drugs in my life.
It's like
not
meet
marijuana.
The parents.
Right, yeah, never marijuana, nothing.
Yeah.
And they're sitting there yelling at me like, oh, your polygraph's lying. It says you've done drugs. We know you've done drugs. And I'm like, listen, I can't help if it's broken. I've never done drugs in my life. Or they'd ask like weird things like, have you ever had sex with an animal? Like bestiality questions. And
that's fucking great.
That kind of stuff. Whereas the CIA...
Does a furry count?
Does the CIA... Well, yeah, I would just say that's the real reason I didn't join the Secret Service. Just kidding. They did offer me a job. But the agency, they were, not that it wasn't intense and serious, but they were much more, hey, are you working for a foreign government? Do you have any affiliation with any group that wants to overthrow the United States of America? Yeah. Are you a spy for Russia type of stuff? So those were the questions, in addition to character questions.
Did they do any of the like ambiguous shit that you see in a movie where like when you answer the thing, they're like, like any of that kind of stuff? Like try to make you
because,
think
well, the problem is you're facing the wall, so you can't really see what the guy's doing over there. So I never, you walk in, they hook you up, you do the whole thing. Yeah. But so unless I'm leaning over, looking behind my shoulder, I can't see anything that's going on there.
So it wasn't really a big deal.
Not for me. I mean, I was in and out in a few hours. Now, I had buddies where they had to come back the next day. Yeah. But I got a pretty boring background and nothing exciting in there.
Yeah, I got you. All right, so 12 months takes place. You get all the admin bullshit taken care of, and then once you actually walk into the CIA and that process starts of becoming a CIA employee, what was that process like?
So you come in, and everybody's an agency officer. Officer is just the name for everybody. So sometimes like, oh, you're a CIA agent. No, FBI are agents. The CIA is just officer. That's just the term. So when you go in there, they have the first week is kind of orientation week. So you're in headquarters, you're Washington, D.C. type of thing. And you're going through all the, again, here's how to get your blue badge, because blue badge are the employees, which is what I had, versus contractors, which are green badgers. And here's where the cafeteria is while you're here this week, just generic stuff. But I do remember they ask you to stand up, like, all right, everybody who's from Harvard, stand up. Half the people stand up or whatever. Everybody from Princeton, stand up. Half the people, that kind of stuff. And all these top tier schools. And then they're like, okay, you have not still, where are you from? Radford University kind of thing. So
how big was the group of...
That is a great question. I want to say it was less than 50. I mean, it wasn't anything huge or anything. Yeah, 50 of us, give or take.
I gotcha. Did people not make it through that original? Like, did you start with about 50?
Not for that orientation. So then you go to the farm, which is the super secret place they always talk about in the movies. At the farm is when they start to whittle away, and it's more militaristic. Yeah. So I was never in the military, again, comp and then CIA, but it was more boot camp mentality. More, we want to wash you out and make your life miserable and see if you can mentally take what it's going to be.
Same group of 50 go through the farm together?
No, it was a different group. I probably went with maybe 24 there, and it wasn't that same group of orientation, because some people had, I guess for the specific farm thing, they only had it certain times a year. So there had been people that had been onboarded, and they'd been kind of just sitting around headquarters, like being assistants to somebody or whatever. Because I think I was with the logistics guy for a while until it was my turn to go to the farm. So it was a motley crew of 24 people who I ended up going with.
Yeah. And how long is that entire farm?
So it's a long time. So I've written probably 12 books now. And the agency, now I've learned what they'll let me say and what they won't let me say. Yeah. And so the exact time frame, when I wrote it in my first book, they made me redact, but I'll say it's weeks and months, and it's a significant amount of time you're there.
Yeah, okay. Can you say if it's more than a year?
No, I can't. So a quick side story. So when you first get your job at the agency, a lot of people get that cliche picture where you're standing in front of the agency seal, like you always see in the movies. So when I left the agency and started my security company, I put that on my website. I get a cease and desist letter from the agency that says, you cannot use that picture of you in front of the agency seal. And so I talked to the lawyers, and they're like, yep, you can't use it. And I said former. And they're like, no, it looks like we're endorsing you. Well, I talked to my buddy who's been in this kind of job. And he's like, well, technically you could use it, but what we'll do is we'll bankrupt you by sending you to the Justice Department if you don't play ball, which is what we did with one guy because we don't like being told no.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, well, that picture is not that big of a deal to me, and you guys have about a gazillion more dollars than I have, so I took the picture down.
Do you know, why do they give a fuck? Do you know?
Well, the only explanation they gave me is, again, it looks like we're endorsing you. Mm-hmm. And, I said, hey, I'm a former CIA officer. I no longer work for the agency. And on my books and stuff I write, I have to put this was reviewed for classification purposes from the agency. However, it is not an endorsement by the agency.
I gotcha.
So they're just real worried about that, even though I always make it crystal clear, hey, I'm not endorsed by the agency.
Yeah. All right, so back to the farm. What was the very first thing that you did when you walked in there? What's the intro to the farm? Is it anticlimactic, or do they do some crazy shit right out of the bat?
Well, of course you think you're a ninja. I mean, I was 23 when I joined. You think you're 10 feet tall and you're the world's coolest guy, and it's not obviously labeled CIA or anything like that. It's a nondescript facility like your office, as I mentioned. Yeah. So you go there and you think you're the coolest cat in town, but you get there and they go to a classroom type setting, and again, they quickly humble you. Like, we're gonna make your life miserable. Yeah. You guys think you're cool and you're the best of the best and the best of the brightest. Well, we're about to find out. Yeah. So it's a lot of same PT. You're doing push-ups. You're getting up at 5 a.m. and I remember this one instance. There was this guy, and for me, I like suffering. I'm very good. I can be miserable and out miserable somebody else type of thing. But there was this guy who I think he was a former college football player, thought he was a bad son of a gun. And they're just pushing us, making miserable one day, and I see him start to cry.
Jesus.
And I'm like, of course, that just makes the instructors, more mad, right?
That's blood in the water.
Yeah, I'm sure it's different these days with the way society is. But
I hope not, but I'm sure it is.
Right. And I'm just laughing, but I'm like laughing hysterically because you're losing your mind, and then I get in trouble for that. So it's,
Did he make it?
That guy actually did make it. Yeah, that guy. Now, some other people did not, and they just, they didn't pass the shooting or the whatever their requirements.
I kind of feel like crying should be an immediate disqualifier.
Yeah. No, I do remember that guy. So, we went different paths, so I don't ever know what happened to him.
Yeah, wow. I mean, if there's no crying in baseball, there shouldn't be any crying in the CIA, right? All right, so physically, obviously they're trying to humble you and make it difficult. If you were to contrast that to any of the other, wrestling hard workouts or anything in the police academy, whatever, how would you kind of fare it compared to anything else you've done? Was it the hardest?
Yeah, it's by far the hardest, but like everything else, and you know this better than anyone too, it's all mental. It's all a mental game. I mean, come on now. So they try and push you to the brink because the mantra is alone and unafraid, like, hey, you're going to be out there by yourself. This isn't the military where you're going to have a bunch of guys surrounding you. You're going to be out on the streets alone by yourself. How resourceful are you? It's going to be tough. We want to be able to drop you in the middle of nowhere. And a friend of mine has a great quote that I love, and she says, CIA officers are the world's best salesmen. The only difference is you sell vacuums, we sell treason. So you've got to be able to sell ice to an Eskimo. You've got to be able to talk to anybody. If you get stranded, you got to be able to convince somebody, hey, can I get a ride for a few miles, kind of thing. And so that, again, it's just a mental game, and they just try to break you mentally.
Is that kind of psychological component emphasized during your time at the farm in terms of how to be a salesman? Like, did you go in depth into like the internal psychology behind it?
Yeah. I mean, it's very good psychological training. Yeah. Very good. And then there's a lot of scenarios. So hypothetically speaking right now, let's say they drop you in a mall in somewhere in Northern Virginia, and they say to you, you have 60 minutes to get somebody's either phone number, social security number, or birth date. And they have a microphone on you. You can't cheat. So you can't say, hey, I'm doing this for a school I mean, you got to legitimately do it. Yeah. And you find out who you can talk to. Yeah. And
so I'm curious, like, hypothetically, if you're in that environment, are you going to pick the hottest chick you can find, the oldest guy that you think is easiest to swindle?
You want me to tell you who the magic is? A 50-year-old woman.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me about yourself. Like, she just wants to tell you about it.
Yeah, you can strike up a conversation. A lot of times they're cashiers, maybe. Yeah. And so you can, in the agency, you give to get. And when I say give to get, what you mean is, let's say it's $19.83. The cashier's there. Oh, you could say, my daughter was born in, 1983, September 15, 1983. You look way too young to be born in September of 19. She's like, oh, my birthday is April 14th at 19, you know what I mean, kind of stuff. Sounds corny, but it works.
Yeah. My first inclination would be to go the zodiac sign route.
I mean, whatever you can grab it. But it was older, well, not older, but middle-aged women kind of thing.
Now that you're getting close to that age, 50 isn't old anymore. When you're 23, it's a fucking antique, right?
Yep.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, all right, so back to kind of the time at the farm. Can you, and I know you got to be a little cautious on how you break it down and the amount of detail you share, but can you kind of gloss over, generally speaking, what the different components of the training consist of?
Yeah, so you get everything. You can get evasive driving, firearms, surveillance detection routes, protection type of work, counter surveillance, Trying to think of self-defense, obviously, you know, knife defense, gun disarms, hand-to-hand self-defense. Yeah. So it's training's amazing. I mean, incredible training, amazing training. I'm grateful for it. But of course, you know, what I would say is like, listen, if you're using this crap, you really did something stupid. Yeah. Because the point of the agency is obviously to blend in. You're supposed to look like the world's most boring human being. And if you're firing rounds at somebody, if you're James Bond jumping out of a helicopter in Paris, something's gone wrong.
Yeah, no, I got you. During that training, is it all in-house cadre, or do they, like for some of the combative stuff, do they bring experts in, or is it all?
So what they would do is, you know, it's a lot of contractors coming over, meaning it's former Navy SEALs or a Delta guy or that kind of stuff. I'm trying to think of I know the contractors they brought in, but I can't name them. Yeah. But so yeah, they were big names who didn't have a military background or CIA. But for example, let's say a shooter, a guy who may be the best shooter in the world, competition shooter, names you would know. Yeah. They may bring them in to train the instructors, who would then train people like me. They train the students in there. Yeah.
On the combative stuff, was it primarily like jiu-jitsu style ground fighting, or was it a mix? Or
no, it was mostly. It wasn't boxing, but it was boxing. Really? Meaning it was like, you need to know how to be aggressive and just pound the crap out of somebody. Because it's not, and again, this was back in the day before cameras were everywhere. Yeah. But if you get attacked, you're going to beat the crap out of somebody and then run. You're going to get the heck out of Dodge. You're not going to sit around there. So it wasn't a lot of jiu-jitsu stuff. Now, again, I'm sure it's changed type of thing. But it was mostly, here's how to punch and be aggressive and overwhelm somebody, shock and awe somebody. That way they're on the ground and they're gasping for air because you just collapse their windpipe, and then you have time to get out of there.
Yeah, I gotcha. Throughout the entire process there, do you have any concept of where you're going to go, or is it like the last 3 days you're there, you get your orders to wherever you're going to?
So you have an idea, but it changes. I mean, everybody starts at the kind of the low rung of the totem pole type of thing. And obviously it depends on how squared away are you. Where did you graduate in your class? I'm in training. I was trying to think where I graduated. I honestly have no idea. Yeah. I remember I shot expert when I left the agency, so you get a little expert doohickey thing. But yeah, I'm trying to think where I graduated. Man, I'm sure I was near the top.
Of course.
Right.
You know, in all the time that I've been alive, the U.S. dollar has always been the primary currency, but that may not be the case much longer. China is set to dethrone the dollar, probably sooner than we all think. All of the world's biggest economies are ditching the U.S. dollar for the yuan. Collapsing U.S. currency is causing unprecedented inflation and crashing markets, which you see around us all the time. If that's not enough, it paves the way for the government to take total control over all your money with a new digital dollar. Take control of your savings and don't let your life savings become a casualty of currency wars. Now is the time to call the only precious metal dealer I trust, which is American Hartford Gold. They'll show you how to protect your savings and retirement accounts by diversifying your wealth portfolio with physical gold and silver. With the finest products, amazing customer service, and a buyback commitment, American Hartford Gold has a 5-star rating from thousands of reviews and an A+ from the Better Business Bureau. American Hartford Gold supports content like the Mic Drop podcast, and it's committed to bringing you the truth, hence supporting my show. Tell them I sent you, and they'll give you up to $5,000 of free silver on your first order. $5,000 of free silver on your first order. Call them now. Click on the link in the description, or you can call 855-967-1413. That's 855-967-1413, or you can just text the word DROP, as in mic drop, to 65532. Again, that's 855-967-1413, or text DROP to 65532. I want to take a second to talk about something near and dear to my heart, and that is a staunch supporter of this podcast, which is Bub's Naturals. The hat sitting in front of me here on our coffee table here in the studio belonged to Glenn Doherty. His nickname was Bub. I did 2 platoons with him, and his childhood best friend and another colleague of theirs, Sean is the best friend, TJ is their colleague, started Bub's Naturals, which is a collagen and MCT oil company in Bub's or Glenn's honor. And, for me, it's an absolute honor to be sponsored by and working with a company that was started in the honor of one of my closest friends and a guy that I went to war with. And, the Bubs brand is not only super quality, collagen powder as well as MCT oil powder, but they also give back to the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation. They donate proceeds from their product sales to the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation, which, to me just furthers, the mission set on Veterans Day. They give 100% back. So I do believe it's the best collagen on the planet. I like to mix it in with morning coffee. The MCT oil powder, the same thing. It mixes in very easy. It tastes great. And it just kind of adds everything that you want to start your day off from a brain health standpoint, from joint support, gut support. MCT oil and collagen are two components, especially as we age, that are integral components to health. And so to be able to work with Bubs Naturals and be able to work with them and sponsor a product that number one is a high quality product, and number two is so near and dear to my heart and to the Mic Drop podcast for who it was started for and what it stands for. It's just it's an amazing place to be. So it is Whole30 approved. It's sport certified, so you're not going to run into any problems with that. And I will say that right now they're offering 20% 20% off if you go to bubsnaturals.com and use the Mic Drop code. So I really highly encourage you to try it out, incorporate it into your day-to-day for joint health, for brain health, for cognition, for gut health, and to support an amazing organization that does a lot of things in Glenn Bubs' honor. So go to bubsnaturals.com. Mic Drop is the code, 20% off. Is it broken down where out of those 24 candidates that when you show up at the farm that like this person knows they're going to be in the computer realm or cyber realm, this person's going to be
so like, I was in, I'm not again be generic just because I don't want another C. So I was more in surveillance, counter surveillance, protection type work.
Do you know that there though?
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was going for that. Now there were some other people who wouldn't exactly like that. But if you were an analyst, or if you were just going to be like the DS&T, the Director of Science and Technology, you would not go to as long a training as I had.
I got you.
Because you're not going to be carrying a gun or needing a gun. So you may go to a FAM course where, okay, you're just going for a week to the farm to learn how to use a Glock 19 or how to use an AR, that type of stuff.
Yeah, okay. And that group of 24, were they all geared more towards the same stuff?
Yes, yeah. I'm trying. I mean, there was a few thrown in there that I think had got an injury, like, hey, I broke a leg at the last year, I got to be in this one. But yeah, most of them were in the same group of what I was doing.
I gotcha. Can you characterize how many different departments there are within the agency, like, or even how it's broken down?
There's a lot. There is a lot.
I guess like from their kind of lightning diagram structure standpoint, how do they organize it? Is it?
There's different directors. So there's the Director of Science and Technology, the Director of Operations, I can't even remember how many directors now, 7 directorates, whatever. But of course, each one has so many different things. Like here, your job is basically B&E, breaking and entering to go place bugs. Your job is lockpicking, and all you're going to do is get through the doors so the bug guy can, very specific type of things. And the agency is so compartmentalized. Yeah. So I think it was during the 80s where Aldrich Ames, the CIA guy who betrayed, got a bunch of people killed because he was working for the Russians. And back in the day, like when you got into headquarters, you could go wherever you wanted to walk around now. Well, now, if you walk into an office you're not supposed to be in, they're like, all right, Jason Hanson, why the heck are you in this office? You're not.
How many times did you hear that?
Why in this office? Yeah, every single day.
Yeah, everywhere you walk.
So yeah, a lot of times you have no idea what the other hand is doing. That sounds like a bad thing, but like.
No, I get it. To me, it's a double-edged sword. You see kind of the opposite of that within SOCOM as an example with the Iran fiasco, when Special Operations Command was basically born out of that right hand not talking to the left hand thing. So there's obviously a need for extensive communication and transparency in that regard. But when it comes to the tradecraft and kind of the secrecy within that organization, I can certainly understand why there would be compartmentalization.
Well, it's such to an extreme, and I'm just again all hypothetical. Is let's say we recruited 2 Russian sources.
Yeah.
They could work in the same office. 2 different handlers can be running them. Of course, they don't know about each other, kind of thing. But it's that compartmentalized. Yeah. And the reason you always got to have multiple sources, you always verify the information. So if you're my Russian asset in the government, and you're telling me all this crap. Well, I got to have other Russian assets so I can say, hey, is he, telling me legitimate stuff, or is he just trying to live off the U.S. government tax dollars, feeding me a bunch of BS? So there's a lot of redundancy going on in there.
Yeah, no, it makes good sense. All right, so actually one more question about the farm, the food. Was the food worth a shit?
Actually, it was good.
Really?
Like,
like catered, brought in, or?
No, it's a cafeteria style. And you got to remember, I was a single guy at the time. This is disgusting saying it now. I would go to the grocery store and get 30 TV dinners every single month, and then just shove my that's how I ate. So going to the farm, we had this cafeteria, all you can eat, good food. I was like, all right, I'm living now.
And I'm assuming you guys stay there the whole
just think
time,
of
right?
barracks for lack of a better word.
And for the time that you're there, is it 7 days a week? Do you have days off?
I want to say it was 6 days a week. Can't remember. I think we did have 1 day off. I don't remember us doing anything on Sundays, unless something popped up where like, hey, we're having this special training exercise. But I want to say it was 6 days a week.
Yeah. Are they sticklers similar? I know you weren't in the military, but you have a good concept of like that boot camp inspection mentality where your room and your uniform and...
So it started off that way, and then it got pretty laid back. So... in the beginning, they're trying to break you, but as you're there longer and longer, it becomes very laid back, and it's not as militaristic, not as horrible. But in the beginning, they're just, again, trying to make your life miserable and see, all right, which guy's weak and we can get out of here ASAP.
I mean, could you live like a total fucking slob there if you wanted? Like, are there... Like, are they checking your rooms?
Not in the beginning, but towards the end, yes.
Really?
You could. You could be a disgusting... And I'm trying to think. There were certain times where I had to share, but then you were moving around, and it was basically a cot. It was nothing fancy, but again, my memory's starting to slip me. I'm pretty sure I had my own room towards the end, and it could have been a disaster. Nobody would have cared.
Huh?
Not towards the end.
Yeah.
So...
I'm assuming you can't like order pizza or nowadays DoorDash shit there, right?
No, nothing's coming through there. You were going to the cafeteria, but you could go there. I don't remember what the hours were, but it was like a cruise ship basically. You could go there all the time and be fat and happy.
I gotcha. Are they sticklers for like not having chewing tobacco or smoking or anything like that, or do they not give a shit?
I'm just trying to think because I knew plenty of guys who dipped. So, I don't think they cared because probably half the instructors were doing dipping. So, I don't remember that becoming a problem at all.
That's a big difference in the military. Like, pretty much all the instructors dip, but they'll make you swallow a whole fucking can if they catch you doing it.
Oh, no, I didn't see any of that or that strictness.
That happened to me twice, actually, but
jeez,
in SEAL training. But that's a whole other story. But, all right, so you finished the farm in a nondescript amount of time. Mm-hmm. When you graduated, where did you go first?
So I was at headquarters, and I was doing, and then you kind of, for lack of a better word, TDY, and it was, and this is where I'm going to be, not shady, because I'm not trying to be shady, but it was more protection work, surveillance work, counter-surveillance work. It was, going back to executive protection work, right, where I'm like, I don't do that anymore, even though our company does it because it's boring. Is, spending 12 hours, which I was a low man on the totem pole, so I, of course, got the night shift. Like, spending 12 hours running surveillance on a high-value target is about as fun as a root canal kind of thing. So I did a lot of that type of stuff. At the time I enjoyed it. Now I say I hated it and it was whatever, but it was very... again, I'm working with the CIA and blending in. Like, these people have no idea who I am, and I'm watching this super special target kind of thing. So it was more, that was the rush it gave me. And fake news is a term these days, which everybody knows. But remember back in the day, something happening, and the news would report one thing, and I know the truth, and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the news got it right, or wrong, and didn't know this. Or I'd be somewhere, like I worked in an operations center at headquarters for a time. And like Jack Bauer, was that his name?
Yeah.
Okay. A lot less cool, obviously, than the show. But, I know something going down and call my family and be like, hey, I can't tell you why, but do not go into the Washington, D.C. area today, right? Type of thing. So it was more exciting of all the knowledge and the training and more of like, here's who I'm watching so they can snatch kind of thing.
Yeah. Was it all in the United States?
No. I went to, I traveled to Europe somewhere. Mm-hmm. And so, I was in, I'm trying to say this. I wasn't in Iraq or Afghanistan or anything like that. And I always tell people, they're like, how many guys did you kill? How many guys did you shoot? The agency has the paramilitary branch, which after September 11th obviously became very paramilitaristic. So those are the guys shooting people, jumping out of the planes. Those are the guys who are the former SEALs and all the former Spec Ops guys. I was like, no, guys, that was not me. I was a regular boring Joe walking down the street, blending in where people see me. They'd be like, okay, that guy's probably an accountant, or that guy, I was not like a high speed, low drag type of guy.
Yeah. Were there any instances overseas where you either fucked up or almost fucked up, where like you made a mistake and somebody was like, wait a minute, that doesn't add up? Or were there any close calls like that?
A lot of times it's your own imagination, meaning you're like, oh crap, I'm being followed.
Yeah.
Because of the agency, you're running a surveillance detection route. For anybody listening, all that means is instead of going straight from point A to point B to your destination, where your final destination is, you are going to the dry cleaners, you're going to Walmart, you're going to Starbucks, you're making sure that when you go to those different stops, you don't see the same car, the same people, or anybody, and you're using channeling and stair-stepping and one-way streets, but it all has to look like you are doing something purposeful. Meaning, here in the States, I can run around and drive in circles and I don't care. But there, you can't do it, because then surveillance will be like, okay, that guy's probably agency because he's trying to evade surveillance. So when I'm teaching people surveillance detection, I say, think of it as a birthday party, meaning you might go to get the birthday cake first, and then you may go to another place and get birthday balloons. Then you may go get a present for the kid, right? It all has to look logical and make sense, and that's what a surveillance detection route is.
Yeah.
So mine was more, I'll give you one time. So I think I'm being followed. I'm not 100% sure that I'm being followed, but you can't take any chances, obviously. And that's another thing, that the stakes are high enough where it's not like today where you're like, I don't care if, stakes are high enough where you're not playing games. You know this. So I think I'm being followed. And I see this shop, and it's like a fancy olive oil shop at the place I'm at. So I go to this olive oil shop, and I look around, and mostly women in there. And about 2 minutes later, the guy I think is following me goes in there. So that's what we call an intrusion point, meaning I went in, so he has to follow me in. It's an intrusion point. So this guy follows me in about 2 minutes later, but of course I can't turn around and be like, haha, I got you, sucker. So I'm shopping for olive oil, asking the owner questions, and
in English?
Yeah. They spoke English, because I always play the dumb American, which works out very, very well. I mean, I'll tell you how to bribe the police overseas and how I had to do that once in a moment, but I always play the stupid American that I'm just there kind of thing. And so I'm asking the woman all this stuff about olive oil, and I'm like, all right, been there long enough. I'll take this bottle, go up to the cashier, and this isn't, in the denominations there, it was different, but for US dollars, say like, the woman's like, all right, this is $75. And in my mind, I'm like, what the heck? This is $75 for this stupid little bottle of olive oil. But I'm like, oh, okay, no big deal. Paying cash, because I don't want any receipts or, credit card, things like that. So I pay in cash, get my stupid bottle of olive oil, which, by the way, I kept all these years. And my wife, so I mean, 10 years old, recently used it. And I was like, that's our magic bottle of olive oil that you gave away. But anyways, so after I bought the bottle of olive oil, of course, I couldn't go to my final destination. And then you have to run a 2-hour SDR home to make sure the boogeyman's not following you.
SDR is what?
Surveillance detection route.
Okay.
And the whole point is you want to lull surveillance to sleep. You want to be the world's most boring human being. Yeah. We're like, all right, that guy's not a spy. He's not agency. We don't want to follow him anymore because he sucks.
Is there a specific protocol for that? I mean, obviously it's going to depend on where you're at, but is like, what are the guidelines that they would give you or that you would adhere to be boring? Like, what would be an example?
Basically the verbiage is parallel the truth. And meaning, right now I'm married, I have 6 kids, I run a business. So if I went undercover, I'm not going to say, oh, I'm a single guy who, you parallel the truth, because it's so much easier to do that. Yeah. So just act as if, what are you in your mind are you doing for that day? So, okay, I'm an American businessman, great cover, right? I'm over there, or maybe sometimes you're over there as a tourist, if you're going to be a quick in and out thing. But hey, I'm an American businessman, today's my day off, and I want to go shopping because I'm new to this country and I want to buy some olive oil, right? So you just do exactly what a person like that would do. And establish routines, because routines put people to sleep. So if you're in a country, for instance, go running every single morning. Going running is a great way to case places, to gather surveillance. And you do it every single morning, same routine, same time. So they're like, all right, crap, here's this American. He goes running at 6 a.m. We don't have to pay attention to him. And while you're doing that, of course, you're saying, okay, here's the cameras, here's this play. You can, you do normal everyday routines of how you live your life, and it's boring, and that is how you stay off the radar.
Yeah. In this case, that 2 hour try to put him to sleep, what did you do?
So let me think what I did. Always going to dinner is a great one because you can buy a lot of time. So I think I walked, went shopping, took a cab somewhere, and then went to a restaurant. And again, I looked super boring, and then went for another walk. And once I was convinced I had zero surveillance, then I went home.
Yeah.
Now, you always have a hunker down site. And a hunker down site is, hey, if crap really gets dangerous, you think you can go home, you go hide under a bridge. You're always making friends with people, meaning everybody there, like if there's homeless guys, you're giving them stuff because you never know if that homeless guy is going to need you to be in his cardboard box where he can hide you type of stuff.
Yeah.
So you're whoever it is, you never know who's going to come in handy.
Yeah.
I mean, one time, and again, a place I can't name, I'm coming out in the morning to do my running, and I see these two guys coming at me. Let's say they're 50 yards away at the time. And I notice they don't match the baseline. They don't blend in. They're not wearing the cultural, they stick out like a sore thumb. As I'm getting closer and they're walking right at me, this is how unprofessional these knuckleheads were. They look at each other, or so they look at each other because they were here. They look at me, and then they step apart trying to force me in between them. As soon as I saw this, of course, I turned around and took off running. These guys take off running at me, but when two people are trying to kidnap me, I become very fast. And so I ran to a hunker down point. Now, for this specific one, it was actually in a hotel, nothing fancy, nothing whatever, because a hunker down place could be anywhere. It can be, as I said, under a bridge. It could be you've gone to this hotel and made friends with a person behind the bar. So it's like, oh, hey, Jason, good to see you, even though it wasn't Jason. But
so it's predetermined once you get there. It's not predetermined prior to getting there. It's not like the agency says, here's your hunker down point. Like you have to find it.
No, so you're casing. When you get there, that's another thing agency officers are really good at is casing a place. So you know everything about this place. You know, okay, where are the security cameras? Where are the one-way streets? Where's construction going on? Where are the places where I can go in and not blend in? Where's the Starbucks where I can pretend to be working from my laptop? Where's the gym that's a 24-hour fitness gym? So you know everything, but again, you are always taking care of people, and you make people fall in love with you, meaning you, that bartender, you're flirting with her and this and that, and hey, and so these places, you're building that relationship, meaning you may stop in there every single week just to get a drink, leave a good tip. That way you have that relationship if anything comes down the pipeline.
Yeah. What was the 7-year window of time that you were there? What years?
So just a short period. Again, I can't.
No, I know, but the 7-year period that you were in, what was the year window of that?
70. Okay. So I was there from 2003 to 2010.
Okay.
So yeah, I left the agency in 2010. And here's a funny, unique story about leaving. So I was getting ready to leave. I was at headquarters at the time, and we were working on some super secret ninja project, and I decided, hey, I was single at the time, but I want to get married. I want to have kids. I had all these mentors because I joined at 23.
Yeah.
So I had these amazing mentors who were in their 50s and everything, but a lot of them were divorced. They hated their wife and kids. They were miserable when they weren't overseas somewhere, and some of them were alcoholics. And so I was like, I kind of see the writing on the wall. So 7 years, I'd done things I wanted to do. I'd been blessed to learn amazing things. And so I went to my supervisor at the time, print out my resignation letter. I'm super nervous. I'm like, my mom died of cancer years ago, but my dad was still alive. And I was like, hey, I'm leaving the agency. And he's like, are you an idiot? What's wrong with you? You have your top secret security clearance, TSSCI with lifestyle poly. You have the golden ticket. Like, we're in a recession. It's 2010. He's like, you're the world's biggest moron. I was like, no, I want to.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, I want to go do my own thing. So I turned my resignation, and we were working on this project that I was a big part of. And the guy was like, no, Jason, you can't leave. I was like, come with me. So he walks me up to, let's just say, the 7th floor. And head honcho, of course, has no idea who I am, doesn't know me. He's like, this is Jason Hanson. He's an important part of this project, Dax. He wants to leave. And he says, well, hey, what if you worked part-time? You could, keep your benefits, give us like 24 hours a week. I was like, you can work for the agency part-time? I don't know. Again, I was out of headquarters. So I did that for a little while, but then I came back. I was like, listen, guys, I'm really ready to go. And they tried to convince me, like, hey, stay here, stay here. Left on good terms. Agency's wonderful. I love it. I love them. Have nothing bad to say about them. Meaning anybody who's like, hey, should I get a job at the CIA? Incredible men and women.
Yeah.
Like everything else, you don't hear 99% of the stuff they actually accomplish and it actually goes on.
Yeah, all you hear is the bad.
Right, correct. So yeah, I left in 2010 to start my own security company, but I mean, a buddy of mine not too long ago was like, hey, we're opening up this new place in, let's just say Asia, right? I want you to become my number 2 and help me open it up because it got exposed, blown up, right? Meaning they had to dismantle it, everything got exposed, and they want to build it up from scratch. And I was like, listen, I'm flattered, but never in a million years. I've done too much TV. I've been on too many podcasts.
Yeah, I was going to say, they would have you back.
No, not now.
I got you.
But he just wanted me because he knew I was not an idiot, that I worked hard and I get things done. I was like, I'm flattered, but I can.
Yeah, I got you. So going back, the reason why I asked about the year time frame period that you were there is that you mentioned the hunker down spots, and to me in the recent 7-8 years or however long it's been where Airbnbs and VRBOs have kind of exploded. It seems like that may be a better option in most ways. Obviously, there's some cons to staying in places like that, and that you don't have cameras and security and things like that you would have at a hotel. But what is your thoughts on using places like that to stay? Would the agency find those attractive, or would it be more troubling?
So here's what I can tell you. When you use the term agency CIA Safehouse, right? Everybody thinks it's like some ninja thing behind granite walls.
No, I know better than that. But.
Right. The whole point is a safe house is it's supposed to look normal and boring.
Yeah.
It could be, right now here we're in Dallas. It could be a suburb house in Dallas. It looks like everybody's house. That could be the safe house.
Yeah.
It could be a hotel room. It could be an Airbnb. So anything can be a safe house. It's just a place where some have skiffs depending on what kind of safe house it is, but it's a safety place to go where if you're needed. And a lot of these are, I think how I can say this, a lot of times people don't even know it's an agency safe house, meaning you may own a house, right? And you're not there a lot and you're a renter and you just think I'm a normal tenant and I check in with you once a month and be like, hey, I just need to make sure that my house is always ready. It's always stocked with this and that. And you may think you're just working for some rich businessman who's coming and going and whatever type of thing. So, I mean, I'll give you a good example. So extractions, right? Sometimes the agency has to get people out of the country. Sometimes agency employees have to get out of the country, right? And it's not like you're bringing in the military or anybody else, but you may have guys and you find who own vehicles, vans, buses, whatever, and say, hey, I work for a nonprofit. We're the American blah, 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 some LLC, which is a shell LLC. And we just need you to be on call if we have our volunteers who need to get out of the country. And we'll give you, I'm just making this number up, all this I'm making up, we'll give you $1,000 a month to be on call, right? And so these guys, hey, $1,000 a month, I'm living like a king. All I gotta do is have my bus gassed up and ready. Now, of course, you have to test these people, meaning you will go there and send agency people who just randomly, obviously nothing's going down, but hey, call them at 3 a.m. and say, hey, I've got a guy you need to pick up at the corner of 9th and 7th Street. And you're verifying that those people who are on the payroll are dependable, can get you across the border, can do what you need to do. And again, they think they're working for some nonprofit or some other organization.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is there a closest call that you had personally that you can share other than the wondering if you were being followed all
Thankfully, no. Yeah. No, nothing crazy, nothing. I mean, your heart's pounding all the time, but a lot of it is like, it's more mental, meaning you're like, I know these 6 guys are following me. I know they're going to put a bag over my head, but it's like going overseas, right? I'm going through the airport once. And of course, you're lying out of your teeth. You're not saying, yes, what is your job? I work for the Central Intelligence Agency. And so you never want to end up in secondary, which is the room they grill you in. But you always have like fake jewelry or fake Rolex, because when you get in secondary, if you get in there, the guys often just stare at it and you'd be like, oh, please let me make my plane. And you know what? This watch, it was a gift from my ex-wife and I hate my ex-wife. Do you want it? Yeah. And many countries of the world will be like, yes, I want it. Okay, here you go. Give me on my plane, right? Yeah. But it's always playing the dumb American. So like going overseas, I was going through this country and this woman is grilling me like nobody's ever grilled me before. And of course I'm lying out of my teeth, but inside, your heart's pumping and you're brain starts to play tricks. Like, okay, she knows I'm agency. They're going to come out with their Uzis and just fill me full of lead.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, laughing and this and that. And, we tend to overstare when we're lying. So I kept having to force myself to break my stare because we overstare because we want to see, like, does this person believe the words that I'm saying? And so I remember I just kept thinking, don't overstare. And then finally she let me go. But I was like, goodness gracious, like you put me through the ringer there.
Yeah, no doubt. Is there, like, again, a lot of what I'm asking is springboarded off of stupid shit that you see in movies, but that's what most people think. Does the agency give direction in terms of, like, hooking up with women? Because, to me, there's no easier way to get rolled up than...
Yeah. So if you hook up with a foreign person, you are in deep trouble. I will tell you, do you want to know who the most deadly, dangerous spies in the world are?
I already know you know the answer to that.
I do know the answer.
Of course I want to know, but I bet I already know.
Cuban women.
Really?
Cuban women, they're gorgeous, and they will seduce you and slit your throat. So the Cubans are trained by the Russians, and what I always tell people is they're so good because in the U.S. government, when you screw up, you get promoted, right? Nothing happens.
No shit.
But if you screw up in Cuba, you may get killed for real.
Yeah.
You may have your family killed for real. So they're very, very skilled at what they do. And like I had a Cuban woman once, like gorgeous, try to seduce me, and I'm not an idiot. So just like, thanks but no thanks kind of thing.
Yeah.
A friend of mine had a spy versus spy thing where they were both trying to recruit the same person, and a Cuban woman was there kind of thing. So beware of Cuban women is the moral of the story.
That's wild shit. I had no idea that they were that active as far as, like,
Cuba has a great intelligence service. Yeah, wow. But yes, no agency employees are sleeping with anybody. I'd be overseas and again, you sit down in a bar, I'm with some new guys, and gorgeous women immediately descend on you. I was somewhere in Europe at the time, and one of my buddies is like, hey, I think she really likes me. She invited me back to her home. And I was like, you idiot. I think she really doesn't like you. So
Jesus, yeah. That's funny shit. Is there a piece of spy gear tech-wise that, whether it's something from a movie or something that you can share that's fucking cool that people would get a kick out of?
So it's important to remember that a lot of times, if you're an agency employee, you're walking down the streets, you're covered, meaning you're a normal person. So if you get pulled over and you get caught with 17 radios and comms gear and all this stuff, you're in deep crap. So it's the guys who are the planting bugs or whatever. I'm just trying to think. There's amazing gear. A lot of it's classified, but think of any cool listening device that you could never detect in a million years. It's small as could be, which is why, a great agency thing involving my buddy was an ambassador. We needed to bug his place, right? So one of the ways you always get to people is you want an access agent, meaning if I can't get to Mike, who's Mike's best friend? Maybe that's my access agent. Or where does Mike work out? Oh, his personal trainer. That's how I'm going to get to Mike, is through his personal trainer. So got to this guy through one of his friends who turns out really didn't like him and was willing to plant a bug in a picture that this guy was giving to the ambassador. So we had the classic TV type of stuff, but real life. Put the bug in the picture, gave it to the ambassador. Ambassador was super happy, put it up in his house, was able to listen for a while, type of thing. So, when people give me gifts these days, well,
throw them away.
I seriously do. I'm so
them.
Paranoid. I'm just like, it could be a bug in here. It's gone.
That's a trip. One of the things you mentioned tactics-wise was going to a Starbucks and pretending to be on a laptop, or if you're at dinner trying to, bore somebody to death that you think might be following you. I'm assuming you have cover phones or burner phones that you take there and that aren't any of your own personal shit on it. But when you're on your phone or on your laptop, is it like, are you playing fucking solitaire or looking at fake documents or what? Like, what's on the screen? Because people are looking at it.
Just what you said, whatever you want. You could be looking at cat videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
You can playing. You're looking like you're doing stuff. You could say, what I like to do is I'm always a planner. So I do stuff that was, of course, non-classified, meaning like, okay, my birthday's coming up. What do I want to do with my birthday? I'm going to put notes of, I want to go to dinner, stupid stuff like that. Yeah. Just do it. And of course, you're looking up and you're trying to sit somewhere where you can see everybody coming in without being too obvious. You're seated there. And like one of the things you do is a lot of times when you're going into, let's say you're in a big European city, right, is everybody's on the payroll for the government in a lot of these places. Like if you go to France, your hotel room is going to be bugged. I mean, it's not like America where somebody comes in and says, hey, we want to put a bug underneath this table in your restaurant. You're like, not a chance, buddy, get out of here. Many of those countries, they'll bug right underneath the table. So if you go in and the hostess says, oh, Mr. Hanson, again, not name I'd use, but Mr. Hanson, we want to put you at this table. I'd say, you know what? I really would love that one. Can I get over there? And then you choose the table. You don't let them sit you where you want to sit you, because a lot of times, again, it'll be bugged.
Yeah. You're saying in France, like even for just regular tourists?
Yeah, because they think again, depends on where you're staying. If you're staying in the American businessman, nicer hotels, whatever, they're either trying to get your info, meaning, hey, this guy works for Microsoft, he's got some good data we need, or they think, no, he really doesn't work for Microsoft. He doesn't really work for XYZ Business Corporation. He's an American spy.
Really?
Because when you go overseas as an American male, which is why women spies are awesome. Female, people let their guard down. They trust women more and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of countries, as soon as you get over there, they're like, all right, he's a spy.
Yeah. Would you say France is the most strict or paranoid of the, we'll call them NATO or European Union
everybody
countries?
spies on everybody. We already know that. I mean, Israel, great security, but Israel spies the crap on the United States. They steal a lot of United States information. So even though we're all allies, it's always everybody spying on everybody, which is why when I go overseas, and I don't go overseas that much anymore unless it's a job-related type of thing, I'm not taking anything fancy. I'm not saying anything in my hotel room. I assume everywhere is bugged. And as soon as you get into a hotel room, especially when you're working with the agency, it's not like you can start looking underneath your bed and feeling around. You have to assume you're under surveillance. Yeah. Because if you're under surveillance and I get over to France and I'm looking around my hotel, they're like, okay, that guy's a spy because he's looking around like a crazy person trying to find the bugs.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is there a toughest country surveillance-wise internationally, in your opinion?
So Russia.
Really? Yeah. Even more so than China with all their...
Yeah, Russia is just because they're so well trained.
Yeah. Camera-wise, do they have the highest concentration?
I don't know that answer, but they just, and again, it goes back to they're much more motivated because if they screw up, I mean, I can tell you a story without telling you a story where, so there's an unwritten rule in the intelligence business where you don't go after somebody's wife and kids, right? So if you signed up for the CIA, you're fair game. Meaning they can do whatever they want to you, torture you, kill you, yada, yada, yada. But you don't mess with somebody's wife and kids.
Something tells me Russia doesn't play by those rules.
Russia. Well, there was this story of a guy who, this podunk country, right? Agency officers in there. He's undercover, of course. There was an agent there of that podunk intelligence service who says, I bet he's CIA. He's a white male. He's an American white male. I bet he's CIA. And so he goes to the nanny they had for the newborn baby and says, will you put this vial in there? She says, no, they're a great family. I love them. And says, just put this vial in there. I want to send a message that, I think he's CIA. And she's like, no. He says, well, if you don't do that, I'm going to kill your family. So the woman pours the vial in. Baby gets super sick. They can't find out what's wrong with it. It's going to die. Finally, the nanny comes forward and says, I put this vial in here. I'm so sorry. This guy said he was going to kill my family. He said he was with the intelligence service. And they gave the baby the antidote. Baby was fine. So let's just say somebody very high up in our U.S. government calls the head of this intelligence service and says, we got a problem here. One of your guys just poisoned a baby. That's a no-no. And he says, I didn't authorize it. That's a no-no. We know, please do not rain down hell on us. Give me a week and I'll solve this problem. He says, okay, you got a week. Week goes by. They deliver a newspaper to the embassy. For the newspaper, this agent of that foreign intelligence service, I think his cover was like an accountant or something. It says, John Doe of our government, an accountant, was brutally murdered during a carjacking.
Oh, shit. Wow.
And then the guy called and said, hey, did you see today's newspaper? And he says, I did. He says, see, I told you I'd take care of the problem. Now, again, that goes back to you screw up in other countries, there's a penalty. You screw up in the U.S. government, not really a penalty.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's impressive. I mean, you said it's an unwritten rule. I mean, do most countries kind of adhere to that?
Yeah, because the problem is, if we start going after your wives and kids, you're going to start going after our wives and kids. It's going to be a whole
it's like
really ugly
nuclear warfare. Like
and it still is, in a way, a gentleman's business when you're dealing with nations, right? And we're not talking about terrorists. We're talking about other countries. Yeah. But it still is a gentleman's type of business where, no, unless it's an intelligence officer themselves, you do not touch anybody related to them.
Food-wise, like in the different places that you've been, is there guidance, again, during training and stuff to try to be careful about what you eat, where you eat? Like how in-depth do they go into that?
Yeah. So, I mean, you don't ever take food from somebody. So I remember one time I was doing surveillance, one of my long things, and you get to, again, you're around, walking around this place, you get to know people, you get to make friends in case you ever need them, in case you say, hey, I need a ride out of here, or whatever it might be. And I remember some younger women who I'd made friends with, and they were like, oh, and again, I keep saying Jason, but that wasn't my name, obviously. Jason, we brought you this special, let's just say hot chocolate and cookies kind of thing. Oh, thank you. And then I have to take it around the corner and dump it because I'm not, no matter who, I mean, even though I'm sure everything was fine. Yeah. So it was like, okay, go to normal restaurants. Do not, the guy on the street who shows up and offers you food, don't be stupid in that measure.
I gotcha. Again, a movie metric. Do you guys take anything with you over there in case shit goes bad? Like you see the tooth with fucking poison in it, or like, I mean, are there ever any measures like that where nothing?
No, I mean, you'll have stuff maybe sewn into your lapel, so you'll have escape and evasion kit, right? The lockpick sets, that type of stuff. But it's mostly, here's the plan. Here's the bat phone to call. Yeah. Here's your extraction plan. Here's where you're going. Here's your hunker down. Here's the safe house. Here's where you're going to go. Here's somebody wrote a book, and it's a good book. And I don't remember, 6 Ways In, 12 Ways Out. Is that the name of the book? It was I want to say it was a former Army Ranger or something, but it's basically kind of like that. Okay, here's your not 75, but here's your 5 ways out if something goes down.
Yeah, I gotcha. Is there a movie or a TV series that you're aware of that is the closest accurate representation of your job? Or
so there was,
generally speaking,
there's a television show called Quantico, and I don't even know if it's still on. But anyways, the second season, it's an FBI show, but the FBI goes to the farm to be trained by the CIA in season 2, and I think I watched the first 3 seasons. But they do surveillance detection route training. They talk about the lingo. That was whoever the agency guy who was the technical advisor did a good job there. But I always tell people, most of the shows are not anywhere accurate because the agency, you have to look boring. You have to blend in. There's no excitement to it. If you saw me running surveillance, if you saw me running my surveillance detection route, you'd see a guy walking down the street into a shop. Yeah. It's not exciting. It's not anything that would keep you in a movie for 2 hours.
Have you seen the Jason Bourne movies?
I have, yes.
Is there anything out of there that's fucking action? Not a single fucking thing?
No, I mean, awesome, entertaining movies. I loved them. But
it's the exact opposite of that.
Correct.
Yeah. Maybe they're paying you to say that, right?
Maybe, could be.
Maybe you're fucking
Pay
Jason
me more.
Bourne. I don't know. Yeah. All right, so European vacation-wise,
yes.
Can you advise what countries would be okay to go to, and ones that you probably don't want to go to? Is there a contrast there?
For Europe, most places are safe, right? I love Greece. I'm a fan of Greece. Beautiful place. I recommend Greece. Greek women are beautiful, and when they come and try and seduce you, do not fall for it. That's the important message. So if somebody said, where would you not go besides the obvious countries of don't go to Iraq and Afghanistan and North Korea? Mexico. Yeah. I tell everybody not to go to Mexico. If you knew how bad Mexico really, really was, you would never go there. Yeah. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Yeah. But as far as like the Europe places, go to Paris or go to France, go to Italy. I mean, all beautiful places I've been to. Yeah.
So really no, I mean, other than the obvious, like there's parts of any country.
Yeah, don't go walking down the dark alley at 3 a.m. Have common sense. And I always like tell people like, listen, don't wear your Boston Red Sox hat and stand out like an American. Yeah. And that was the beauty of when I was overseas in those places. I was like, all of you are the typical obnoxious American, and I love it because it draws so much attention where nobody's focused on me, just walking around minding my own business.
Would you take it a step further, and whether it's professionally, well, I guess especially doing what you did for a living, where like if you're in, let's say, the UK or France, like you get a soccer jersey of a popular player.
Sure, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we don't do also as Americans. Yeah. I mean, America is the greatest country in the world. There's no place better. I love it. But when you go overseas, try to assimilate. Yeah. Meaning, even if you hate soccer, buy a soccer jersey. Even if you hate rugby or whatever it is, blend in and try and, I mean, I'm kind of attempting to learn Spanish kind of thing because I do some work with Hispanics and all this and that. But assimilate, show, and they appreciate it too.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you, I was going to tell you the bribing police overseas story.
Yeah, please do.
So obviously when you're overseas, you got cash on you. You're never going to put it all in one place. But somebody I'm with does something stupid can't go into details on it. But it's surrounded, I think it was maybe 3 police officers, right? And of course, the last thing you want to do is end up in a foreign prison because then you're in your foreign, it's like a mess. So first thing is, you play the dumb American, right? Oh my gosh, officer, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And in most places overseas, you can bribe your way out. It's not like here in the U.S. Where you try bribing, it's going to get you in worse stuff. So I know there's a good chance I'm going to bribe my way out of this. So I'm playing, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. So of course I don't just whip out my fat bill and be like, all right, here you go, get out of here. I'm like, I bet there's a fine to pay, officer. How do I pay this fine?
Yeah.
And I'm pretend to shake. I mean, I'm nervous, but I'm also pretending to like overdo shaking. And so the guy looks at me and he says, yes, there's a fine to pay. And it's broken English. I don't speak. He was speaking broken English. Yes, there's a fine. And it's $50 of that equivalent. In my mind, I'm thinking like, you idiot, you could have got me for every dollar I had on me. Yeah. And so I'm like, oh, $50. That's such a big amount of money. I'm so sorry. So I give the guy $50. He lets me go, lets us all go.
Yeah.
And I wanted to murder the person I was with who got us in that jam. But it's just, I never say don't, and I train a lot of people in this, like, just don't whip out your money. Say there's a fine to pay. Yeah. Because on the rare chance that police officers are not corrupt, they're just going to say you pay it Monday morning or you pay it at the police station. So
that's really good advice. Is there a standard ballpark amount of cash that you guys would carry, or is it just totally dependent?
Totally dependent. So I like just personally $600, and that's $300 of US dollars with one $100 bill. Because if you shove a $100 bill in somebody's face anywhere overseas, you're getting out of that back. You're getting a ride. Or, I mean, it'll move mountains. Yeah. And then $300 equivalent. Just again, you got to have currency. Yeah, local currency.
That's the most you would take. I mean, like if you're going on an actual sanctioned agency trip, I mean, are you taking thousands? I would hope.
Well, it depends on what you're doing. I mean, who do you have to bribe?
What's the most you ever took overseas?
So that's classified, but let's just
say, it is.
Let's just say if you were, I'm again making up a hypothetical number. I mean, if you're having to bribe your way and do a lot of stuff, you may have 50,000, you may have 100,000, you may have 200,000. I mean, if you're just going over there, just nothing bribe wise, you may have, let's just say, $1,000 you keep in your room at all time, but $600 on your person. Yeah. For just walking around.
But strategically, one $100 bill, you don't want to have too many of them, right? Or you're a fucking target.
Right. I mean, now these days I have too much money on me, but
I mean, over there in that environment.
Right.
But again, like trying to extract something for the listener, if they wanted to go to Europe, and be a tourist and be smart about it, if they do find themselves in a pinch, that would be a good course of action is 300 US, 300.
That's what I would do. Because again, I mean, you only use this in a serious, dire circumstance.
Because, not to interrupt, but if you pull out 10,000 in cash and they're in hundreds, and a cop's going to be like, who the fuck is this guy? Like,
right, correct. And you have it all. I mean, if you're going to a bad place, you may have it taped right under your testicles, kind of thing. You may have it taped to your leg.
Do you right now? Is that what's going on?
I was going to make a very inappropriate joke, which
that's what this show's all about. So drop it like it's hot. You can say whatever you want, but So I mean, I guess going back to the advice portion. Are there any other like cool secret hiding places or things that people can do or should do in those environments?
I mean, if you're really worried, your shirt collar, you have a lockpick set. You might have a strike sewn into it. Yeah, nobody see it. Same thing like the cuffs of the pants. You could have it sewn into it, where you're going to have a lockpick set, maybe a handcuff key. Nobody's ever going to see. And when you get searched, and you got to remember, if you're going to get kidnapped, they're going to take your shoes. So you don't want to hide all the valuable stuff in your shoes because your shoes are going to vanish. Yeah. So that's really extreme, having it sewn in so good where nobody's going to see it. Now, for me, going overseas these days, I'll still have it, but it's not sewn in. Meaning, I'll have paracord. Yeah. I'll have paracord shoelaces because you can escape rope, zip ties. I mean, all kinds of stuff with paracord and all that. But it'll look innocuous. Again, if I go overseas these days, it can be like, all right, this guy's got a kit. Why does he have a gun? Okay, he's got he's got a paper clip. Yeah. He's got stuff that I can MacGyver if I need to.
Yeah. Was lockpicking a part of the course that you went through? Like, are you?
So that's one of the things I can't confirm or deny. But what I can say is I'm good at picking locks. Yeah. And even though I've forgotten a lot. So one of the beautiful things about the agency is you can take a wide variety of courses. I mean, they're all about education, of course.
Like you can just take them even if they don't necessarily.
Right. Sometimes there are courses that don't necessarily line up with what you're doing.
Yeah.
Cool. And you can take it. So there's a tremendous amount of good training.
Is that all in-house too, or do they bring people in? Do they send you places?
Most of it is in-house. Yes, there are some places where they send you in the United States where, of course, the people you're going to have no idea who you are.
Yeah.
But yes, a lot of it is in-house, the majority of it.
Yeah, I got you. Was there ever any instances where, like super good deal-wise that you got out of overseas trips where it was like vacation spots or getting to rent cool cars or do shit that like you would only get to do in the agency, like any perks, I guess, that because, you know, like in the military, there's times where we might do a cross-training trip with somebody and it's like the King of Jordan's special units guy and he spoils them. And so we go get to do something that like you couldn't fucking pay to do.
So that happened to some buddies. It never happened to me where they were doing some protection work for, one of the kings. I can't remember which king. And they gave him a Rolex. And as the story goes, and this is just my mind remembering the story. So if you got gifts, you know, you can only keep something, worth over $100 or whatever that is. But the king had his team say, these Rolexes, these $25,000 Rolexes are $75. Here's the receipt. And and they got to keep them.
Damn, that's cool.
Yeah, not me though.
Yeah, well, of course not, right? What haven't I asked you about your time in the CIA that I should have?
See, I told you why I left. Man, you asked so many great questions. There's nothing jumping in my mind. It's really...
Any other super cool stories that you can share?
So there was this, I'm going to share this one very vague. A guy I know, how about that?
Yeah.
A friend of a friend of a guy I know. So there was this drug dealer, real nasty guy in South America somewhere. And remember the movie Face Off?
Yeah.
Great movie, right?
Yeah.
He basically pulled a face off. He'd gone to some guy and
Wow.
said, hey, I'm going to give you $10 million. Give me all your documentation, your passports, your birth certificate, everything. I'm going to assume your identity, and you have to go to this island somewhere, not anywhere in the United States, not anywhere in Latin America. You can never return here again, but here's $10 million, right? And so the agency thinks they have located this drug dealer who we're trying to make vanish, right? Bad guy. But unlike the movies, you can't just immediately snatch and grab somebody.
Yeah.
You have got to do a tremendous amount of recon, tremendous amount of surveillance. You've got to get DNA evidence. You've got to get hair samples. You've got to get fingerprint samples, which is why you go in weeks and months in advance, why you build those friendships. That way, when the girl at the bar who's basically in love with you and the drug dealer, his restaurant, holds the glass, you can literally go up and just snatch the glass and say, hey, I need this. And she's like, oh, okay. And she doesn't care, right? I mean, she's that in love with you.
Yeah.
So you can do all that. Then after, again, I can't tell you the exact time, but months and weeks and whatever, you have verified DNA, fingerprints. Okay, this is John Doe drug dealer, right? But this specific drug dealer, a lot of these drug dealers, they own the towns they're in, right? So they're giving them all kinds of money. Everybody's in love with them. They think they're great, even though they're horrible drug dealers, because they prop up the town and, hey, you need money this month, here's money this month. So he didn't have that great of security. He had 2 bodyguards in front, 2 bodyguards in the back. He liked to drive his fancy car, so it was a 3-car motorcade, nothing big deal. Very habitual, because human beings are habitual. Had this nightclub, for lack of a better word, go there, let's just say 5 o'clock p.m. every single day for the hookers, for the whatever. So follow this guy around and happened to be at a big intersection. So this guy's nightclub goes there at 5 p.m. every single day, massive intersection. Now remember, with the agency, you don't want to shoot out, you don't want any bullets fired, so you've got to figure out how to snatch and grab this guy without bullets fired. And his bodyguards all have, they were, let's just say AKs, right? They've got all AKs and everything. He carried a pistol, but he's a knucklehead. You didn't have to worry about him. So how do you snatch and grab this drug lord in essentially broad daylight without any bullets being fired, without an international incident? Here's how you do it, in case you want to know for the next time you're going to snatch and grab a drug lord. You have intelligence officer here, major intersection. You have intelligence officer here, major intersection. You have team hiding somewhere. Let's just say 5-man team.
These are your guys or local guys?
No. These are all intelligence officers, all intelligence officers. But remember, the beauty of America is it's a melting pot. Yeah. So they look blend Mexican, they blend in. They, it's not 5 white guys who are sitting there kind of thing. So you know he's going to pull up at 5 p.m. on the dot because he's so habitual. So somebody's obviously running surveillance, watching the guy, says, okay, he's approaching. As soon as he approaches, you take off from your intersection, the two agency officers, boom, fake, well, real car crash, but fake car crash. As soon as the guy gets out, that car crash happens. He immediately turns to look at his car crash. All his bodyguards immediately turn to look at his car crash. You have the guys, the team jump out from behind, just self-defense moves, take him down very, very quickly. You put a bag over the drug lord's face. You take the drug lord to a private airfield, a private plane, take him out of the country where he's not going to be in the United States, where he's going to be in a place where no laws apply to him, and he's never going to be seen again.
Black site treatment.
So if there were such things, I don't know.
Yeah. How were his all the bodyguards that are armed? How were they distracted long enough for that to happen?
So they're coming up from behind, and let's just say there's two guys to every single bodyguard.
Okay.
So a quick blow to the head, not to kill him because we don't care about killing the guy, but a quick blow to the head and the nerve on the side knocks him out. So all you're doing is zip tying him real quick. You're not killing him. You're disarming him, and then you're out. I mean, it's this gone in 60 seconds, essentially type of thing.
Damn, that's wild. So that makes me curious. In your times overseas, are you carrying?
So vast majority of the time, no.
Yeah, that seems dicey.
Right, and the reason is because if you get pulled over, you have a gun. So that's what I tell people, like 99% of the time, you're not carrying a firearm. I always carried a knife. I was I'd carry a knife. Again, I've got a knife clipped in my pants here today.
Yeah.
I don't care. Overseas, I'm not clipping a knife to my pants pocket because then they'll see it. But I always had a knife at the appendix position, a fixed blade.
Yeah.
And so I always carried a knife. I wasn't worried about getting caught with that because I always wanted some type of self-defense thing. But yeah, you're rarely carrying a gun.
Yeah. Any other protection means like pepper spray, bear spray, or anything like that?
A pen. I mean, I carry a tactical pen every day right now, like, one of these things that we have to jab somebody with it. But yeah, a pen that you could use for self-defense. Yeah. So mainly my things, unless I was carrying a gun, would be a pen and a knife.
Yeah, I got you. Do you have a favorite knife manufacturer for that application?
I have a lot of knives produced for myself based on what I want. And it's a company, actually, I can't tell you who it is only because he produces a lot of the knives for Gerber and all those kind of companies type of thing. But yeah, I get a lot of my one-off knives just because I like creating knives. I'm a knife junkie. Yeah. But there's a million and one great knife companies out there.
Yeah. So you're not going to endorse anybody?
I'm not going to endorse anybody just because I haven't been made for me for one-off.
Yeah. Amen. All right, so you decide to get out. You start your own company. Where does Shark Tank and specifically the New York Times book, The Spy Secrets, where do those fall into the timeline from when you got out until as you sit here?
So it was about 4 years after I left the agency. So I was doing a lot of corporate work where companies would almost literally sneak me in the back door. So I do work for a Fortune 500 company, multi-billion-dollar company. And they'd have a security problem. Maybe they have a kidnapping problem in Brazil or whatever, and they need my help. And I'd go in, and remember, I just left the agency. I don't know anything but government work. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're a multi-billion-dollar company and you have 4 people on your security team. You have 1 guy in Australia, 1 guy in England, 1 guy in the US. I mean, it's like, what? This is your security. So I was doing a lot of corporate work, but I didn't enjoy it because, of course, there's lawyers involved and it's a pain in the butt. And a buddy of mine was like, you got to go train more civilians. But remember, I'm still in the agency mindset. Like, I'm very private. I don't want anybody to know what I do. I don't want anybody to know who I am. And I had some businessmen finally come to me and say, like, Jason, are you good at what you do? I said, yeah, I believe I'm very good at what I do. Well, guess what? Nobody's going to friggin' know if you don't go promote yourself, if you don't get out there and tell about yourself. So somebody told me about this show Shark Tank, and I said, it was so like not me. I was so out of my comfort because I'm a very, very private person. Yeah. And they were like, you should just go. And I remember, I hate to say this, like they send you this contract to sign and I X out all this stuff and I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. And they send it back to me and they're like, that's not how this works.
Yeah, take it or leave it.
Yeah, take it or leave it. And so I was like, okay, I'll sign it. So I went on Shark Tank. It turned out great. Yeah. Wonderful experience. Got to deal with Daymond John.
What was the product?
So I was doing this training. I have some escape and evasion surveillance detection training that I do. Yeah. And I pitched the seminar to them. And it opened me up to the masses, meaning that's when I started doing all training to next door neighbor, high net worth individuals, celebrities, everything I'm doing now. And of course I love it. One of the best things that ever happened to me. It's great. I'm glad that I kind of shifted my mindset and got out of my comfort zone of being the guy nobody knows.
Yeah. Oh, so I've had one other guest on here that was on Shark Tank, and I asked him a little bit, but I'm curious your experience with kind of what's shown versus what actually happens. Is there a huge disparity?
Yes. So I was in there for 55 minutes. They boil it down to 8 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So they don't show a lot of things that happen. And then you make a deal on there, but then they come back to you and say, we want to check your books. We want to run all your numbers. Because obviously a lot of entrepreneurs go on there and say, my business is doing $100 million a year. And
no, it isn't.
Right. Yeah. They come back and, okay, your business made $1 last year. So they check your books. And I found out that only about 30% of the deals that close in real life after the TV. Only 30% of them close when they offer them a deal. And so mine did close. I did end up doing the deal with Daymond John, but they want to verify that you're not lying like half the people are.
That 70% are full of shit, basically.
Correct. Yeah, they'll say like, hey, I have a purchase order with Walmart. They're going to put my product on. And the guy's like, well, I have a cousin that works at Walmart, and he said he might be able to help me, but they have no purchase order or any of that stuff.
Yeah. Is there any almost kind of scriptedness to it where like you come in, give them the pitch, and like if you fuck it up, they're like, go out and start it over again, or is it totally off the cuff?
You script the intro, meaning the first 30 seconds they script for you, and that's it.
Like a teleprompter or what?
No. Meaning they tell you what they want you to do. Okay. So I came out, I thought it was so corny, but again, it went back to, do you want to be on the show or not?
Yeah. So if you say I'm not doing that, they're like, well, get the fuck out.
Right.
Really?
So I came in a disguise. And I took off my wig, and I mean it was so cliche, so corny.
I don't think I could do it.
Yeah, it was bad. But then after that, it's totally not scripted, and they tell you, they say you only have one chance.
Yeah,
like there's no do-overs, there's no nothing.
Anything else?
No, again, it was like I'd see some reactions. It was 55 minutes I was in. They boiled it down to the 10 minutes, and so I'd see them say things, and then they'd put my reaction there. I was like, no, that's not what happened. Like they really spliced it up well.
Yeah. Was there a lot of other people there, like in waiting rooms? Like, do they just?
So what they do is they have trailers. Like think of just a normal RV trailer. Yeah. And I can let 10 of them on a lot, and you're each in your own trailer. And they basically say your call time is 8:15. Your call time is 9:15.
Yeah.
And they say, listen, you may be in there 10 minutes. You may be in there 2 hours. So you're on deck, and I'd sit on deck, and I can't remember, my guy was maybe in there for 30 minutes before it was my turn. Yeah. And they just, it's a cattle call. They do 12 of these in a day type of thing.
Are the trailers hooked up like mini bar and snacks and shit?
No, it had air conditioning. I do remember that. But yeah, it was just a normal travel trailer. I think you had some bottles of water, but no, nothing Hollywood, nothing fancy.
Did you drop a dump in the toilet at least?
I don't think, I was so nervous because I was like, it was again, I'm going on TV. It was against everything I was training, everything I knew. So I was like, oh, should I be doing this?
Yeah, that's wild. Where is it at, in LA or?
Yeah, it was in LA. I don't even remember where it was filmed, but they bring you in, you stay at put you in a Holiday Inn, and then they bus you down to the actual studio.
Yeah. Were there parts of it, questions that they asked, or any parts of that entire process that take place or took place for you that don't air? I mean, I know that a lot of it doesn't air, but like, is there a part of it that they do that isn't ever going to be shown that most contestants are going to go through that you're aware of?
No, I mean, they like to show train wrecks. They like they like to make it as natural as possible, which is why they only scripted that first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But I remember, so Mark Cuban grilled me probably for 5 minutes pretty hard, and then was going to make me a deal. And then Daymond John stepped in and said, hey, here's my deal. Take it or leave it. You've got 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, I took Daymond's deal, and they didn't show Mark offer me. But Mark said to me afterwards, he says, it's a good thing you took Daymond's deal. It was a lot more generous than I was going to be.
Yeah. What was the deal you took?
I want to say it was $150,000 for 30% of the business was Daymond's deal.
Yeah. And then once you do that, I mean, the 30% that you're in that actually goes through, what does that process look like after that? I mean, like, so
Daymond's great. I mean, nice guy. So I guess I should say is we worked together for a year. So a lot of it is, these guys are so busy. They're doing a million things. Yeah. So Daymond's wonderful, great guy. I could call him whenever I wanted. I could email him whenever I wanted. And it's mostly his network. Like, hey, Jason, you need a PR guy. Here's a PR, hey, Jason, because I was making a gun belt. Oh, here's my manufacturer. So he's hooking you into all the folks he knows.
I got you. Any other takeaways from the Shark Tank experience?
Well, in the way it was like the agency. So you go in there And I watched every single episode of Shark Tank that had ever taken place. I knew the questions they were going to ask. I prepared answers. My pitch that I was going to do, I literally practiced it over 1,000 times. So everything comes down to hard work in life, meaning where you're with the agency, you're going to do something, you know this from the military, you train it over and over and over until it becomes second nature and you can do it on autopilot. So that's the exact same thing I did with Shark Tank, because people going in, they were like, you know, you're a service business. They usually only do products. One of the best things I saw is some guy said, here's this guy who teaches escape and evasion and spy stuff. I'm sure the sharks are going to escape and evade his business. Yeah. Like that. And I thought it was very clever. Yeah. And so everyone was like, there's no chance of getting a deal. But hey, I practiced. I'll tell you, there was a I can't name the businessman, but I watched every single interview these guys had ever done too. And Daymond John mentioned a businessman during one of these interviews. And the businessman I talked to, he doesn't want me to mention his name, I don't know why, but I happen to know this businessman through some work I did. And this businessman said some very nice things about me, and I printed it out and I put it on a piece of paper. And I said, as they're pitching me and asking questions, I said, hey, Daymond, by the way, you know so-and-so and I do so-and-so. I'll pull out this piece of paper, and they didn't show this in the thing, but here's what he said. And at that moment, Daymond's eyes lit up, and I was like, now he knows we're synergistic kind of thing. So it was same thing for the agency. What do you do? Deep research. So you know your target better than anybody else. Well, same thing I did with the sharks. I did more research than I guarantee anybody's ever done on it.
Yeah, man, that's clever. I love it. You worked with him for a year. Can you or do you mind sharing? And I know it would be different for everybody that's done deals with him. Some of them maybe stay together for a long time. Did he cash his 30% out, or is he? He got paid well. He got a very how did that work?
It was hey, we worked together. We were making great money. I had to pay him what he was owed, and then it was more like a one-off. Like now, I could call him and say, hey, Daymond, here's this deal I want to do. Do you want a piece of the action, kind of thing?
I gotcha. And do you have any idea? Have you talked to any of the other Shark Tank contestants that have been like? I'm assuming there's not like a Shark Tank reunion at Applebee's.
I've talked to some of them because some of them reach out to you after they say, "Hey, you were on Shark Tank. I'm going on or whatever." Yeah. And I can tell you, everybody's different. Some people are still working with them. Some deals never go through. Some people have horrible experience. Some people have good experiences. My experience was good. Yeah. I was just reading about a guy who in Salt Lake. And he was actually, I met him. He was one of Daymond's, what do you ever call him? Daymond did a deal with him too. But he ended up being a con man and sexually assaulted a bunch of women, is going to prison. And so, I guess the long story short is not everybody pans out.
Yeah, no shit. I guess that's the story in all of life, right?
Right, yep.
Are you still a part of that business, or did you sell the entire thing? Or?
No, I still own the business, but I own 100% of the business.
So you bought him out?
Yeah, correct.
I gotcha. All right, so I know, moving past that, you've written, you said 12 books.
Yep.
We'll focus on the bestseller, the Spy Secrets That Can Save Your Life. Kind of encapsulate what that's about and what people can expect, and most importantly, what your motivation to write it was.
So my motivation to write it was a lot of these, luckily I have a lot of good people who talk sense into me, because I'm like, I'm not a writer, I'm not going to write, and I don't want to be out there that much. And they're like, Jason, you should do this. You got good information, kind of thing. And so it's basically a spy's version of how to be safe, meaning here's what you need to do to avoid carjacking. Here's human lie detection skills. That way you can tell if you're dealing with somebody or lying people. Here's how to escape duct tape, rope. Here's how to pick locks if you need to pick locks. Here's surveillance detection routes if you need that. So it's encompassing everything I learned safety-wise without giving any classified stuff. But, I've trained thousands of people over the years. Thankfully, only a small number of lives have been saved, meaning only a small number have had to use it. Yeah. But as I tell people, like the agency stuff I learned is you are walking around in broad daylight as a normal Joe, because that's your cover. So you're going to experience what normal Joes experience, which is why it applies to everybody.
Yeah, I gotcha. It sounds great. That's also, it's a competitive space. Obviously, credentials-wise, you're at the top of people that have written those types of books. Have you gotten any shit or pushback from the agency? I know that they cleared it, but any buddies of yours are like, oh, you're that fucking guy writing books, or like any of that?
You want to hear the funny thing? So, of course, there are trolls out there. The only people who are trolls are, of course, people who have never been in the agency or military or whatever, and just bitter that, hey, why is this guy selling a bunch of books where I know stuff too, but that are. But agency's been great. Agency guys have been great. And a lot of the agency guys work for me now.
Oh, no
Meaning
shit.
they're like, hey, Jason, we saw you're here. We want to come work for you.
Yeah.
So I've got some great executive protection guys in your agency.
Yeah.
I'm like, we had a billionaire not too long ago say, hey, I want to go over to Europe for 2 weeks. And I just want one bodyguard and one bodyguard only. So I sent one of my best former agency guys to go do this, and he did it. So yeah, it's more been of, hey, Jason, we want a job.
Yeah. Do you ever cherry pick some of that shit? Like if somebody says, hey, I want to go here, and you're like, fuck, I'd go on that trip.
I used to. Now that I'm married, I got 6 kids. Number 7 is on the way.
Holy shit.
So I don't travel as much. So I don't, I mean, absolutely. Like this European, it was a super wealthy guy. They were having dinner at the Porsche plant or whatever, BMW, all this. And I was like, man, if I was single, I'd be going there. But this guy is single, which is why he went.
Have you seen Good Will Hunting?
Yes. I mean, I saw that years ago.
Do you know how Matt Daymond rattles off the names of all of his brothers really fast?
Mm-hmm.
Can you do that with your kids?
Oh, no, I cannot. No, I can't. I asked my daughter the other day, I'm like, how old are you? Are you 5 or 6?
Dude, there's zero chance I could keep track of that many kids. I guess similar question, the other 11 books, do you know all of the titles of the 11 other books that you've read?
I would have to go really, really slow.
Well, I mean, that's at least encouraging, because if you can name the books and not your kids,
I can name the books.
That's classic. So what's going on now? I guess obviously you still own the company. You're doing a lot of the protection work and security advisory consultation type stuff. You're continuing to do that, I'm assuming. Anything else that's going on?
So we've got our 320-acre spy ranch out in Utah, where we do a lot of training, evasive driving training, the self-defense. That's keeping us real busy, especially the self-defense training. We do something called Spy Dangerous, that is basically stuff that I learned somewhere that I can't name. So that's, everybody wants self-defense, which I totally understand these days. And then just a lot of home defense consulting, meaning I'll have a super wealthy person bring me in for a home security audit. And I enjoy those because it's a lot of money and I meet great people and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. Similarly, I sell personal protection dogs. I have for 15 years, and same type of client. You come in and in some instances working with guys like you, like they'll have hired somebody to do camera stuff or hire staff, whatever, and so it's kind of liaisoning with that. So I certainly understand that part of it. Is there any famous clients you can mention, or do you have NDAs?
No, I have the NDA. I mean, you would know names, and I'm sure again
same thing.
I'm sure we've had like crossover clients without realizing it. Yeah. But I never noticed a lot of musicians too. Yeah. Like musicians love us for whatever reason. Yeah.
Well, I think from an exposure standpoint, even more so than movie stars, like they're always out in huge fucking groups of people. I mean, even movie stars may be at a restaurant or a red carpet thing, but on set, like where they're performing, it's closed. Whereas musicians, I mean, similarly, like I've put dogs on buses and gone on tour with certain people, or even having like one at their residence with their security staff and one that goes with them. And I mean, that's like security wise, they're a fucking nightmare. They
are, and they take their security seriously. I will say one thing: most Hollywood celebrities would be dead if they had actual death threats, because their security is an absolute joke.
Oh, I know it. Yep. Man, it's fascinating shit. I feel like I have asked you a ton, but I could continue to ask you. But anything that I didn't ask you over the course of your entire career that is worth mentioning, or that you'd like to share?
I think you hit on it. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut so the agency doesn't send me any more cease and desist letters.
Well, see, my goal was to get at least one sent to you.
To get somebody to put a hood over my head from behind here.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can everybody find you? What's the easiest place to access all the different stuff that you have going on?
So if you go to tacticalspyschool.com or spybriefing.com, either of those websites, they can get a hold of me, and easy place to find me.
Awesome. Thanks again for coming. I appreciate you sharing it. We do have a gift for you. We talked about a coin, so
awesome.
I got to give you one, but there's one there's another gift underneath that from John Johnston in Champion Choice Silver.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I don't know if you're a big shit kicker fan, but if you want to open the box and show it to the camera, that's why I was asking you about the colors earlier.
Good deal.
Yeah, so you put your shit kickers on.
I like that.
And kick some shit. So, all right, for you guys, I appreciate you tuning in. If it weren't for you, week after week, show after show, we wouldn't be able to bring you amazing guests such as this gentleman. So thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, feel free to choke yourself. And until next time, this is Mic Drop.